Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jake, this is Nadia, this is Buddy, that's Sedona, that's Babu, and today we're doing something a little different today. We're revisiting an older film, one that you've never seen, but one that I have seen once before in the past. I previously ranked it in my Christopher Nolan ranking video, very low on the list. It's not a movie that I really liked or loved after seeing it in 2014 in theaters, but because of all of the outpouring of love and affection for this movie that I saw it get after ranking it so low, and all the angry comments, I decided, hey, maybe I should rewatch it. And since you've never seen it, I want to know what your take is. So personally, I think Interstellar is a very divisive movie. I've seen people love it. People say it's Christopher Nolan's best movie, and people say it's his worst movie. So what do you think of this movie?
I liked it, although at times, I feel like the logic didn't make sense. So for example, like a pilot knowing just 100% without us seeing any training exactly how to land everything. And it's just that we're just meant to believe that the pilot is really good. Matthew McConaughey's character. That one was a little hard to believe, but I also loved the fact that the CGI was very seamless. I was really connected with Matthew McConaughey's character and his life and his family. And it was really, really well done. Where sometime in the future, we're not given the timeline, I don't think. People are running out of food. There's two options for him to go to, or two reasons for him to go to space. One is a priority one, and the other one's priority two. Priority one is solve the gravity equation so that
I like hearing you try to explain this.
Yeah. Solve the gravity equation so that they can save the current people on Earth. And then the option two is they have a lot of embryos frozen, eggs or embryos. I think it's embryos because it sounds like they can just make babies out of it without a lot of support. So, and then populate another planet so the human race can survive. I felt like option two was a little egotistic. These haven't been born yet, so why not just prioritize option one? And it was prioritized option one, but I felt like it was mostly prioritized from Matthew McConaughey's character because he has living family on Earth.
Just interrupting you real quick. We're going to talk non-spoilers first before going into spoilers later on as usual, just in case you haven't seen it.
Yes, that's right. That's basically the journey, right? How can he solve problem one? The people on Earth can be saved, basically. And I was really, really attracted to that premise of just that part.
He's got to save humanity.
No, not just humanity, but his family, the connection that he had with his people. Kids. Yeah. He was really care for people who were actually there instead of people who aren't.
Yeah, the first 45 minutes of this movie are very family oriented, setting up the emotional ties.
He has a passion for space. He has passion for piloting, and really it's a family movie, the struggle that he has to go through, because when he's in space in certain planets, time works differently than it works on Earth. So he is not aging as much as people are on Earth. And so, he's missing out and doesn't want to miss out on his kid's childhood. And we see a little bit of Matthew's journey, but then we also have moments of his kid's journey and how that works. And I really like how that came together. I could see it wasn't just about, okay, he's in the mission, and then at the end of the movie, we see just what happened to him. It was just very much of an ensemble of cast. Anne Hathaway, I thought she did a good job, although there wasn't as much, there was a stakes for her, but it just didn't feel as heavy as Matthew McConaughey's character. You could see it in his voice, in his eyes, the way he acts, and there's a purpose that is greater than doing it because you have to, but you need to. You could see the urgency in him, and I really connected with that. And honestly, that kept me going throughout the whole film, even when some parts I was like, that doesn't really make sense, or how does this work? Because there was some confusion about some things. You eventually get it once you watch the rest of the film and you finish it, but then there are times don't be surprised if you haven't seen it where you're huh? I would rate it 8 out of 10. I forgot how you rated it in Christopher Nolan's ranking video, but
I don't think I rated it, but I did put it low on the list.
What would you rate it? And what are your thoughts now that you watched it a second time?
It was interesting. I'm happy to have seen it a second time. I do think that my evaluation of it has changed a little bit. Not a ton, though. And in some ways, I think my evaluation of it has gotten worse.
Wow.
However, just watching it from the first half of this movie, you get pulled into this, and I could see why people love this movie. I can see why it has the reputation it has, because I don't think any other movie out there has depicted space and space travel and science fiction in this way. It's extremely well done. I mean, all the scientific elements that are in it, the wormholes, the black holes. I mean, it's like the 10-year-old version of me who was like a geek reading about wormholes and space travel was like imagining like making this type of movie one day, where it's like, wow, I would love to see a movie where people go through black hole. What would it look like? That sort of thing. Like, that is so fun to me.
Did you feel like it looked realistic?
Yeah.
I
I mean,
it
it looks incredible. And the music, the way the elements are tied together, it's the cutting, I can see why people love it. So I kind of got swept in it. But it's a really dumb movie. I just can't help but come away with it going, damn, like there was so much there, so much good stuff there that is just like hanging loosely on a really badly drawn script. All these different elements that are cool but don't cohere, or that are trying to fit within like a very tight 3-act structure, but it doesn't want to. It wants to do these other things. One of the key elements that annoys the hell out of me in this movie is over explaining every like moment and every character emotional beat. It feels like there's more explaining the emotions than actually feeling them and processing them. The images aren't given enough time to stand on their own. There's so many amazing sequences that I feel like it'd be better off if Matthew McConaughey in this thing didn't say, it's not possible, but it's necessary. You know, like these extremely corny lines that, like, man, you're getting swept up in the images and you clearly see what Christopher Nolan is interested in. But then these poor actors are giving these monologues about love and the scientific values of love while sobbing in a spaceship. And it's like, oh no, why are you making them do this? I feel bad for Anne Hathaway, which she in this movie delivers, I think, like a really kind of bad performance. Like, I never buy her in this role because it, first off, like you said, it's extremely underwritten, and I just don't see what her character is going for. They don't feel like scientists. They don't feel like real people you could see. So it feels like there's a lack of harmony between the realistic looking shit on screen and the very not realistic characters and feelings and emotions, save for a couple of scenes. Overall, it's a bad movie with great scenes, and I'm gonna stand with that, because I do think, and we can talk about the ending later on. Of course, we'll have to, because I think that's the whole thing. That's where it all falls apart for me, is the ending.
I completely disagree with you about like it being too corny. Maybe because I like corny myself, but I love those moments. The moments that you hated about like, but it's necessary. I actually really like those moments. So I wouldn't take that out. I like, obviously we have some consensus about Anne Hathaway's character, but I don't think it's bad acting. I just think that it wasn't like, the script wasn't like really, it was just putting her in a really awkward position where it was just weird.
In a way, it's kind of funny, because the movie reminds me of science fiction pulp novels from like the 50s and 60s, where the science is cool and the theories, but like all tons of great science fiction novels, the characters are fucking cardboard.
No.
Okay.
I don't agree at all.
All right.
I do agree that like some things were explained a little bit too much,
and some things were not explained enough
and that's kind of like, that's
like, there's so much that I wanted to know about this world. I thought the world building was really not fleshed out or well done. The school isn't giving information about, like, they're saying the moon landing didn't happen.
Don't get into spoiler though.
It's not spoilers, that's early in the movie, but it's giving you an idea of how is this world working, like, and how is NASA working? Where's the money coming from to fund this mission? Why is Matthew McConaughey...
NASA is basically a cult without like...
Yeah, but how are they funding this like experimental technology, and how are they getting the scientific resources to do this? And I want to get into the specifics later of what out of tune in this movie that feels really rushed and not. Sometimes there's stuff that's like, why are we spending so much time on this drone that they're chasing down? What did the drone have to do with it?
I think it showed that Matthew McConaughey's passion. I think that was the purpose of it, is that he was very passionate about this and that. I mean, you needed to give him some purpose or some explanation of why, other than like, he's really good at this. He knows how to hack piloting systems. And so you needed to give us the reason of why they chose him and why they want him to go to space. And I think that's what that scene served. So I think it was very necessary.
One thing I do want to say in this movie's favor, I really loved, and I forgot that they did this, the like cutting to documentary footage of people talking about the time period. I thought that was really cool. It reminded me of the movie Reds, which is a great movie where
I forgot about that because
people
they
talking
do
about
it very shortly, but then it
They
kind of
do.
wraps around.
I wish
at
there
the
was a
end.
little more of that, actually. That kind of, because it made me feel like, oh, we're like learning about a real thing that happened, but it's in the future.
I don't wish there was more of it. You and I disagree so much about like this. What would you rate it? And then let's get into spoilers so that we can.
I think
get
I
into
would give it a
specifics.
4 out of 10.
Blasphemy.
Sadly, there's great stuff in this movie. There's great scenes in this movie, but overall, it feels really not fleshed out well enough and emotionally manipulative. And the dialogue is horrible.
What movie isn't emotionally manipulative? Like, aren't you
So
trying?
many movies are
Oh my
emotionally
God.
manipulative.
All right.
There's a difference between having like earnest feeling that is expressed and tugging at the heartstrings. A movie like Godzilla -1. That's a movie I cried watching. That didn't feel emotionally manipulative.
Movie. Very different
that
movie.
movie felt like that earned the emotions there. It felt similar emotions, but in this movie, I didn't cry. I didn't feel these things. The best scene in this whole movie is Matthew McConaughey watching the video footage of his kids after time.
All right,
So
we're
we
gonna
can
need
get to
to
that
get
in the
in
spoilers.
spoilers.
But I'm just saying, like, this is, I felt emotionally manipulated, especially in the final act of this movie where we're going, okay, why are these things happening? Why is it explained like this in the clunkiest way? You can feel the script grasping, see what I did? And ultimately it feels like a movie that is like a puzzle box. That's like, once the puzzle is solved, then what? Where's the emotion? Where's the feeling? Where's the awe and wonder? Like, there was some of that, but God, we need more of that. It just...
One question for you before we get into spoiler.
Okay.
Do you feel that way about being emotionally manipulative or emotionally manipulated because of Matthew McConaughey's character portrayal or because of the writing?
The writing.
Okay, so you think that Matthew McConaughey did a good job?
He did a great job with the acting and overacting sometimes. He did good. And that was fine. But the script and the structure of the script, I think, it felt like a first draft.
I have to hear this explanation. So, spoiler.
All right, so let's go into spoilers.
3, 2,
3, 2, 1, spoilers.
Please explain about how you felt emotionally manipulated in this one, because I thought it was pretty seamless. Like, he wants to save his kids. He's going to space and all those things to save his kids. He is, while he's watching the videos of his kids being transmitted to him, but he can't transmit anything back. It's like you could see his emotions of crying, everything, regret, because the mission isn't going the way that they want it to go, and especially like when his daughter, because it's only his son who like sends him videos in the beginning, and then it switches more to his daughter. It's like when the daughter is the same age as the father, then it's like very emotional. One thing I want to say before I want to hear your thoughts is that I did feel like here's where I feel like it was kind of weird, but it was funny at the same time, is when Matthew McConaughey's character was trying to like comfort his daughter by saying that, oh, we might be the same age when I come back. I'm like, how is that comforting? How is that helping the situation? Like, we might not you won't see me for like 30 years,
That's not anywhere near what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that
Explain.
scene. Okay,
Explain.
So that scene where Matthew McConaughey, of course, watches his kid age on the video files is amazing. Shortly after that, the movie, I think, just takes a left turn, because then we're back on Earth as we're in space. And I think so much of the power and mystery and sadness of this whole story, it just falls apart. I think you could take apart or take away, this is a little bit of a tangent from what I'm talking about with emotional manipulation, but I actually think you could take Jessica Chastain and Affleck brother out of this movie, have it stay in space with Matthew McConaughey, and then we finally maybe see them again at the end of the movie. But mystery and wonder of it is when they're in space, they're isolated, they're far from everyone. All he's getting to see of his kids are these video files of them aging. Like, that's amazing. And then we continue with the mission. I think that this sidetrack stuff where Jessica Chastain is on Earth and she's talking to Michael Caine, and I get why they had it. It felt very much for plot necessity, because we get revealed that Michael Caine actually doesn't know this secret formula for gravity or some shit.
He was lying,
and
basically.
I could just read through the screen of going, I get why this is here. You just want this to have a plot thing so that they have to go into the black hole and learn about, because he needs the information from the singularity of a black hole to learn how to to solve gravity. First off, what are we doing with this solving gravity? The whole part of the movie where the camera turns sideways when they're in like the cylinder building, and he's like, "This is the way," and I'm like, "All right, so we're gonna solve gravity to take everyone up into space? Then what?" Then what? Like, how are we building a civilization, moving billions of people into a spaceship to get off of Earth? It literally makes no sense in my mind, and I'm going, like, what is going on? And I wish there was a little more explanation there, or a little bit more like, hey, this could actually happen.
I don't think there is an explanation about taking billions. I don't know how you can really, like, explain taking billions. Like, my mind went into, all right, after she solves gravity, then... with the help of her father, then basically all the billions of people are working and they're like building the spaceships all together because that's like the only realistic-ish scenario,
It's too much of like hard sci-fi mixed with total like fantasy. And I think that's where the story kind of breaks down a little bit. One thing that really bothers me about this movie is the explanation for why things are going to shit on Earth. It's just like there's blight. There's this thing called blight, and the crops are dying and humans are dying. It feels hard to me because this is a real thing that people are dealing with on Earth. We're talking about the climate crisis, global warming, how our world is slowly becoming uninhabitable because of human beings and our decisions and our industry and everything, and how that could change, how things could get better if human beings make different choices on Earth. And this is a movie that very clearly says humans don't have anything to do with this. The Earth is just like fucked. So let's get out of here. I think that whole idea is just kind of like ridiculous, and I just wish there was more of this world to explain. And I think it's funny that we're talking about this movie since we were just talking about Civil War, how I was okay with the ambiguity of what was going on, but this to me feels far more important when they're talking about in this movie the survival of the human race and human beings on Earth being able to survive in space. And what is the infrastructure here? It seems like NASA doesn't have any funding except in secret. The human race has denied the possibility of even exploring space. So how are we gathering the resources to make this happen? How is any of this happening? Why is Matthew McConaughey... Okay, and here's another part of the script I wanted to talk about, which really falls apart for me. I think they front load this movie with way too much poking you in the eye saying, hey, this is going to matter later. This is a thing to pay attention to with the ghost stuff. Like the first 30 minutes of this movie, we're dealing with ghosts pushing off books off of a shelf. We're dealing with lines and patterns and symbols and how this is a message and they're trying to communicate, to Murph and to McConaughey. It's so clearly obvious, like, okay, this is just stuff that's going to be explained at the end of the movie. It's going to be aliens or something or whoever. And then when the result is simply, well, Matthew McConaughey time traveled to be able to do that, to communicate, to tell himself to go to NASA to go fly the ship. It obviously, like with time travel, not a lot of it makes sense, but they try so hard. I wish they had just made it more of a mystical thing, like in Contact, there's more of like a mystical feeling at the end of the movie when they make contact with the aliens. This is kind of like a thing where it's supposed to be like a spiritual thing. And you think about 2001: A Space Odyssey, when they, in a very similar sequence, how, they travel through the wormhole or the monolith, and there's this psychedelic sequence, and it's images and feeling. And I felt when I was first watching this movie, and at this point, that Matthew McConaughey going into the black hole, like they're going to have to do something really out of this world, visual and ambiguous to explain what's going on in this movie. And then the result is so just like non-imaginative and simple and dull and just like, yeah, he travels and he's in this other dimension and they have TARS in there with him explaining. So he's talking to someone and they're explaining, this isn't something from aliens. This is us in the future. Humans made this dimension so that I can communicate to Murph, so that I can, go on this mission and save humanity. And it's like, okay, if there's this other dimension. Is that
what happened? Because
that is what happened.
100% clear.
No, that's that thing. And maybe I didn't understand that the first time I watched this movie, but watching it again, I'm going, they're explaining in so much detail in this supposed to be like mystical sequence where he's in this other dimension. And it feels so, and this is something that Christopher Nolan can sometimes do in his movies, where like even in Inception, which is a movie I love Inception, there's this kind of like practical mindedness to things that should be more dreamlike. And it is somewhat emotional, where he's like banging on the shelves trying to communicate to his daughter. Like that's the important part. The not important part is explaining how all this is happening. That maybe can be saved for a scene afterwards, that can be saved for another moment. But like this is a critical emotional moment, and you're like front loading it with all this. Well, I think humans in the future did this, and we need to get get the formula to send to Murph so that she can solve gravity. Which, what does that even mean? What are you talking about, solving gravity so that they can send people into space? How are they going to give people food in space? What is happening? All right, I'm getting heated.
You are, and I don't understand where you're coming from at all.
What are you talking about?
I did not feel like it was over-explained in the parts that you identified. I thought it was over-explained when they were explaining like a wormhole.
Have you seen 2001: A Space Odyssey?
No.
This movie is doing 2001: A Space Odyssey, but with other elements. But ultimately, I think it's trying to reach that kind of like profound sense of wonder.
I like that it was simple and with more complex concepts. Everything you say, I disagree with. Like, I don't even know how to like begin to disagree with you, because that's like the part that was attractive to me in the film. Sometimes I don't mind expositions, like as long as it's done well. And I felt like the exposition for everything except for the wormhole was needed. I did feel like when they went to like a couple of planets, you know, that could have, I don't know, I'm a little mixed on this and you let me know what you think, but felt like some of that could have been avoided a little bit more. Like maybe they could have straight gone to like Matt Damon's planet. I also understand because they're trying to like say the time works differently and they're like, you know, passing time. But I thought some of that could have been sped through. Of course, every astronaut dies and until we're left with Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. I also felt like the ending was a little bit, it was nice, but it was like, okay, this is my complaint about the film, why I wouldn't rate it higher than 8. When he sees his daughter after all of these years, and the daughter is like, you know, it's nice moment. The daughters, like kids and grandkids, don't give an F about like seeing and talking to their grandfather and great grandfather. They're like, it's almost like he's a ghost and they barely acknowledge him.
That felt like an oversight in the script and the directing too, because that key moment in the scene isn't anything else. It's the line she says where, because my dad said he'd come back, you know, and that's like...
Well, and then that's another thing where I was like, but you doubted it so much. Like, you didn't even send him a video. It was just maybe she realized it at the end, but that was my problem. I felt like the grandkids and the great-grandkids of Matthew McConaughey's characters didn't interact with him so that it's convenient for him to go chase Anne Hathaway and have like a more of a happy ending, that he won't be a little bit surpassed like people who live on Earth who are in space now. He's kind of like beyond it because he's explored so much more. If I saw my grandfather, who is so much younger than my mom, and he's space traveled and all this and he's, first of all, he's historic. They like had like a farm like house that, you know, that's like a museum, and so he's very historic. It's kind of like having a really famous grandfather who saved humanity, right? And you don't have even one question for him. You don't even acknowledge him. Like, your grandmother clearly is very attached to the father, because she's like, I knew you were my ghost. People didn't believe me, but I knew you helped me with the formula. People thought I was just making it up. You're just gonna ignore the guy and be like, all right, let's just gather back. And it just felt like really bad writing and directing.
To me, it feels like you're talking about like the tiniest little scrape on your hand when you're covered in bee stings.
My criticism is very tiny.
I'm like, that's just so irrelevant compared to like the fundamental structure of the script is like
and
flawed.
I disagree about the fundamental structure of the film, because I think the structure was fine. You don't. I think the ending was
You
annoying.
liked when he was like in the bookcase? Hold on. Did you like the scenes that were cross-cut with the space stuff and the action with Jessica Chastain on the farm talking to her brother and then burning the crops for some reason? Like, to me,
she was burning the crops that he would leave.
All of that just felt like small potatoes. Like, it just
I thought it was really funny.
Like a waste of time.
She realized the formula of gravity, and then her brother is pissed, comes back to the farm. She's like, basically hugging him, and he's like, I want to murder you.
No,
like,
that whole sequence to me just felt like we're dragging our feet, and that plot line is just dragging its feet until we can get to the moment. And as a viewer, I'm just thinking, all right, she's obviously going to get the formula. She's going to figure it out. Somehow it's going to be transferred to her. We just need to see how, and we're just like waiting for that to happen. It felt like...
I didn't feel like it was dragging the feet. I felt like it was necessary waiting and plot devising that was happening.
It just felt contrived to me. All the whole second half of the movie, I just felt like, all right, the plot is showing itself. There's no subtext to anything.
That's funny because
except for those
the
couple
second
of
part of
scenes.
the second half of the film is my favorite than the first half. I guess this is why we do these reviews, because you and I have such different opinions about things a lot of times, and what like you think is good is so different from what I think is good.
I think it's interesting because I don't think we've had such a big gap on our perspectives on a movie in a while. Usually we can kind of see where the other person is coming from.
It feels good to argue, doesn't it? Because we barely argue outside of this, I guess.
Yeah.
Feels good to me.
Let it out.
All right, well, let us know what you think.
Let us know.
And yeah, if you liked it, let us know why. And if you didn't, let us know why there too. And who do you agree with? I'm truly curious. So otherwise, I hope you have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.